what I want to do here real quick is I want to read a little bit from the top of 18, and I'm really not even going to read, but if you guys go look at the top of 18, there's that quote that's from Dewey's own words, and he talks about what education means and how you're supposed to perhaps use your powers for to help society move in a better social direction, or else in the ability to share in the experience of others. All right, thus using the consciousness of one individual, and then you're going to apply it to the entire race. What? So they want one type of consciousness to represent an entire race. Isn't that weird? You know, I always say, what makes somebody black? What is it that black essentially is supposed to be? What does it mean to be black? And, nowadays, thanks to BLM, I've never seen black people be more separated. Because now all of a sudden, I swear, we're all supposed to be fitting into this definition of what black is. I believe somebody made that up for us. I think people do that with white people as well, to where it's this way that white people are supposed to be. And if they're not acting that way, then they're not really being white. That's a terrible way to have things. But it really means that there is like a group think that consists out here where you have to be one particular way. And if you're not that way, then that's not what you are. That's weird. That's a terrible way to have education be, right? We're going to share in the experience of others. Well, what does that mean? That when they tell you what happened to them, that you have to feel that as well. Everything they feel has to be what you felt. Because, maybe if something's bad or even if something's good, then that's how you should feel. How are they going to make this happen? Because, again, they're doing it from a common standard. It's going to be common to everyone. It's going to be because they took a template and made the template for one person, and then they're applying it now to an entire race. That's terrible. Terrible way to have learning be. One way to be across your entire race. But then there are sub-departments as well. Well, men are supposed to act this way, and then women are supposed to act this way. But then, then there could be this big wide range of ways in which people are supposed to act. So then everything now gets mushed together. The mushing of everything together. I'm going to move on here to even another part of this. When it says Dewey's views are in practice in a great majority of American schools. Before the turn of the century, they were revolutionary. The Wundtian redefinition of education means feeding experimental data to a young brain and nervous system rather than teaching of mental skills, led to the abdication of the traditional role of the teacher as educator. Its place was taken by the concept of the teacher as a guide in the socialization of the child, leading each youngster to adapt to the specific behavior required of him in order for him to get along in his group. So I have to think the same way that everybody else in my group does, or else my group ain't gonna like me. Reading on further, Dewey called for a leveling of individual differences into a common pool of students who are the object of learning technicians devising the social order of the future. Well, isn't that interesting? Again, basics in education, the Leipzig connection. Y'all should feel free to go check this out. Not feel free, but be free to go check it out. In closing, according to Professor Mort and Vincent of Columbia's Teachers College, John Dewey was a culminating theorist in 3 centuries of educational writing. In elite circles, I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. And I'm going to refer it to 2 different things. One of them is that in the Illuminati, they say that that they may not be here to see the work finished, but they're going to live their life and fight the fight for that movement to see their goals happen. It's about the movement. It's not about the individual. It's about the group. It's not about one person. It's about the entire individual. Or it's not about the lone individual. It's about the entire group. It's about the entire group of people. All right. They want to see the group make it to the end. So, if you ever pick up some writings about specific things that happen in Illuminati circles, you're bound, or elite circles, you're bound to see that. How they thought that they may not make it to the end, or that it may not happen during their lifetime, but they're definitely going to live their life to fight towards those goals that they want to see happen. And that's also a biblical thing, that people in the Bible understood that they wanted to see Christ come, but it might not be the time for Christ to come on the scene yet. But they were going to fight for the time when Christ made his return, and they were going to tell people how to recognize when Christ was going to make his return. They were going to tell people about the things that Christ said we should all do. They were going to live for that and push it on and push it on and push it on. There's a word called enmity that means positive hatred. And that positive hatred does indeed exist out here in the world. It's when you hear things like, when you know that there's other information out there that can help people deal with coronavirus, and then there's other information, and then that information just clashes in the middle because one side can feel like it's right and so can the other. But we're really reaching a time where it's only going to be one way to think. Speaking of one way to think, people only want there to be one way to think. That's the whole purpose of the one world order, right? Is to have one way to think. These folks were pushing new world order methods long before anybody really knew that they were coming. Better yet, those ways came from 300 years of educational writing. What were people going to do to rearrange people's thoughts so they could get them into the one world order? The thing that people have been talking about for a very long time. What were they going to do? Because they just can't tell you. People would fight back. They just can't tell you that we're heading for that. Because, again, people be up in arms about those types of things. Let me see here. There was one more little thing here I was going to read here. To Dewey, as to Wundt, man was an animal, alone with his reactions and entirely dependent upon experimental data. He believed that learning occurred only through experience, that the stimulus response mechanism was basic to learning, and that teachers were not instructors but designers of learning experiences. At the Dewey School in Chicago, and later at Teachers College of Columbia University, Dewey was able to implement and promote the interchangeability of psychology and education, successfully enough to become the leading figure in American education. Yet Dewey, the father of American education, was only one of the practitioners of once revised psychology who critically transformed American education and consequently American life. What is the method that people are using to transform life? Why don't people want to do certain things that we all used to know and understand? Where we're moving into a post-human world. Post-human, that's not the word I want to use. Postmodern society is what we're moving into. I said post-human, I meant postmodern. Postmodern society is a society where people start to challenge any and everything. Like the air we breathe, are we on Mars? Can you escape this place somehow, some way? That's really what we're looking at. Is where people challenge everything, right? So, in other words, what makes one thing right compared to testing it out. Well, let's just test it out to see what happens. That's the experience, right? Let's test it out. How would you know? How would you know if you could leave this place like the Matrix if you didn't ever try and find the answers to the Matrix? I'm gonna talk about that hookup in a different video. I've already talked too long. I'm gonna post this up on YouTube so y'all can see it, and I'll post chapter 2, the reading for chapter 2 as well. I talk in a little bit in that as well. I say some of the same things in this and some different things as well. So y'all go check that out. Like, subscribe, comment. Videos about AIDS and what happens to the spirit, the body, the soul, the person after we die, and what other religions and thought is about death as well. All right, be safe.